Hello friends, welcome back. Today's picture panel is going to be a view in Queen's Park. Again, trees prevent me from getting right back to where this photo was taken, but I can get pretty close. The thing that jumps out is the big tower, and it is all visible from Queen's Park, so that's why the label was that. It's currently called Whitney Block, and it's pretty much all under construction. What isn't under construction, you can tell, just isn't maintained that well. In this photo, there are 3 floors, and currently there are 4, but the 4th one, the newest one, is all wrapped up currently. They're replacing all of the windows and redoing all of the heating and cooling work because this building wasn't really designed with that in mind. If you look at other photos from the 1920s and the 1930s, it's quite easy to see why this building would have been included in some of the 12 most important buildings in Toronto or most prominent. A huge sort of symmetric repeating 7-story tall building would have been quite interesting back then, but I think today it's mostly just some background concrete as you're trying to race around the curvy bit at Queen's Park. The Whitney Block that we see in this photo was completed in 1926 and was renovated quite heavily to include that 4th wing and the giant tower in 1931. So it only really looked like this for about 5 years, which I think really dates all of the photos quite accurately. This was intended to be a giant complex which hosted all of Toronto's public servants. At the time there was about 7,000, but it was designed to be expanded upon to include more. This meant that it included a lot of bizarre things for a typical office building. There was a bowling alley in the basement and a secret tunnel to get back to the actual Queen's Park building. And right when it opened, there was also a veterinary practice for livestock in the top floor, which meant that a service elevator had to be used to move cows into pens on the 6th floor, which I can't imagine was great for anyone. The livestock elevators, along with the human elevators, were all hand cranked, and they're actually the longest surviving examples of those in Toronto. But between just having a hand cranked elevator and a single staircase, it was decided that the tower itself wasn't really safe in the event of a fire, and has actually been vacant ever since the 1960s. There have been a lot of ideas on how to renovate the towers to bring them back up to code, maybe New York-style staircases spiraling around the outside, or a second sort of stair-specific tower built in a similar architectural style up the back, but none of these are really deemed worth it considering the huge expense to gain relatively little office space. The Auditor General isn't really happy about having to pay to heat 16 floors of tower office space in downtown Toronto for 60 years that nobody has occupied, but there are no real alternatives with what to do other than to tear it down, and I don't think anybody really wants to do that because it is still a pretty nifty looking tower. Heating and cooling the towers has actually always been a problem. When they first opened, there was a big wooden platform at the top to put a giant ice cube on, hoping that the cool air would trickle down, but that actually didn't work at all, and it's always been pretty notoriously stuffy, and people would take up smoking so that they could get an office beside a window. N-Wave, Toronto's bizarre district heating and cooling solution, also has a steam generator on the site and has since 1995. N-Wave also tries to use cold lake water to cool a lot of big buildings around Toronto, so I'm curious if this has also been tried to be cooled by lake water. I couldn't figure out if it had or not. I know that the hospital across the street is, though, so I think it's a real possibility, which means that this building probably has some of the most interesting non-air conditioning cooling attempts in Toronto's history, if such a thing is possible. Pretty much all of the building that is in this photo is still used to this day, though. The Premier's office is in there, and pretty much all of the sort of generic supporting government offices are also in there. I wonder if this Ford for the People sign is actually put there by Doug himself in his office. So now you know all about a building that you can view from Queen's Park. Where to take your cow if you happen to have a sick cow in 1930s Toronto, and where to try your wacky cooling ideas, I guess. Anyway, have a beautiful day.